The shuttle groaned with atmospheric resistance as it descended through the haze of Perler, a planet so heavily urbanized its clouds sweated exhaust and artificial weather. From her seat, Sergeant Helena Graves leaned back with the relaxed posture of someone on vacation. Her boots were propped on the edge of a cargo crate labeled non-lethal deterrence, and she held a cup of something pretending to be coffee. Her team looked equally underwhelmed by the historic diplomatic opportunity they were apparently part of. Corporal Miggs, her demolitions man, flipped through a dog-eared comic book about mutant sloths. He'd scrawled boom in the margins of several pages. Beside him, Sniper Specialist Liao stared at the floor, expression neutral, one finger tapping an irregular rhythm on his pulse rifle. Their medic, Cord, hummed a cheerful tune entirely at odds with the grim contents of his emergency trauma kit. "You know," Cord said, adjusting his belt of auto-injectors, "when I imagined peace talks, I didn't think it would smell like burned plastic and impending betrayal." Helena sipped her coffee. "That's just how diplomacy smells. Like microwave tuna at an HR meeting." The shuttle shuddered slightly as it docked with the alien stronghold, an imperial fortress carved from black stone and alloy, stretching high into the toxic sky like a monument to overcompensation. The Galactic Empire spared no expense in architecture or arrogance. A hiss of atmosphere sealed behind them, and the ramp lowered. On cue, a trio of tall, robed Perlorian dignitaries approached. The middle one, Ambassador Crichtol, had the face of a flattened lizard and the poise of someone trying very hard not to show disgust. "Welcome, human representatives of Earth's peacekeeping corps," Crichtol said, layering sarcasm like frosting. Helena smiled brightly. "Thank you, Ambassador. It's so nice to visit such ambitious architecture. Makes our cities feel cozy. Like shoeboxes." Crichtol's mouth didn't move, but the frills along his neck twitched. He gestured stiffly for them to follow, and they were led through echoing corridors lit by violet light and decorated with shifting holograms of Perlorian war victories. Miggs elbowed Liao as they passed a dramatic image of a Perlorian vessel obliterating a planet. "Compensating much?" he whispered. Liao didn't answer. He was staring too intently at the way the guards positioned themselves, every 20 meters, overlapping fields of fire, subtly armored in ceremonial garb. This wasn't a tour. It was a setup wearing a friendly mask. Helena noticed too. She'd noticed everything since the shuttle doors opened. The sterile air, the faint mechanical whine just under the audible threshold, and most importantly, the way Crichtol had pronounced peacekeeping, like it was a disease. They were led into a vast chamber, with a domed ceiling of opaque crystal. Light filtered in weakly from above, casting a dreamlike pallor over everything. The Empire's Supreme Science Minister stood at the center, flanked by assistants and a floating translator drone that buzzed like an anxious insect. "Before we begin formal discussions," the minister said, voice processed through the drone with excessive enunciation, "we would like to offer a token of our hospitality, a visit to our cultural preservation wing. A walk through history, as it were." Helena gave a practiced nod. "We'd be honored. We're big fans of history." As they moved through a massive sliding door into what looked like a hollowed-out museum vault, Liao's voice crackled softly through their private comms. "Sarge. Air pressure dropped 5 millibars. Something's venting." Helena didn't react visibly. She smiled at a mural showing Perlorians colonizing a planet already inhabited by smaller, more colorful aliens. Noted. Cord was inspecting a display labeled Emotional Compliance Gases, Experimental Era. He gave a thumbs up to Helena. The chamber sealed behind them with a sigh that felt like a final breath. Then, it began. A hiss from the ceiling. Thin, pale vapor, like breath in winter, spilled into the chamber. The lights dimmed subtly. "Oh," Miggs said. "We're doing this now?" "Apparently," Helena said, sniffing the air. It hit them like an echo, strange tingling behind the eyes, a crawling sensation at the base of the spine. It was the kind of chemical manipulation that bypassed reason and aimed straight for the primal. The Empire called it Fear Compound 6. Developed through centuries of psychological experimentation, it tailored itself to the subject's memories, fears, and traumas. It had cracked hardened Zrullian warlords and reduced Scarnian inquisitors to twitching puddles. Helena inhaled deeply. A long pause. She smiled, slow and nostalgic. "Smells like home," she said. "Reminds me of Detroit." Cord coughed once. "That explains the burning tire scent." Miggs dropped his comic. "I think they tried to fear gas us." "Yep," Helena said. "Rude," Cord added. Meanwhile, behind the two-way observation panel, chaos bloomed. "They're not panicking," a Perlorian analyst shouted. "Why aren't they panicking?" "They should be." Another barked. "This batch is calibrated to exploit the deepest recesses of mammalian fear responses." In the chamber, Liao calmly leaned against a pillar and tapped his helmet twice. "Not even my top 5 worst Tuesdays," he murmured. Helena turned slowly toward the observation glass. She didn't know if the Empire could see her clearly, but she smiled anyway. That same unsettling, almost grandmotherly smile she used right before she unseated 3 pirates from a moving dropship with a folding chair. "They think this is going to unnerve us," she said, conversationally. "I almost feel bad." Miggs squatted and began setting up a portable scanner. "Almost?" "Not really." Cord wandered toward a corner and pulled out a sandwich. "You know, I did have a panic attack once. But it was during a tax audit. This doesn't really compare." Above, the cloud of gas grew thicker, but the humans moved as if strolling through morning mist. Back in the control center, Crichtol gripped the edge of the console. "They are adapting. They are mocking us while under psychological assault." One of the techs whispered, "Sir, maybe the data was wrong. Maybe humans don't fear like we do." Another voice, older, cooler. "No. They fear. But they use it." Helena's voice came through the speakers, clean and casual. "You know, fear's kind of like coffee. You get used to it. Grow up with enough of it, and eventually, it stops waking you up. You just need more to feel anything." She paced slowly through the chamber, stepping over a decorative plinth with some dusty alien helmet on it. "Where I come from, we had school shooting drills before we had driver's licenses. Tornado drills in the morning, active shooter simulations in the afternoon. And don't even get me started on dating apps." Cord snorted. Liao said nothing. He was watching the ventilation grate. Helena stopped in the center and looked up. "I know you're listening. So let me make this easy. You wanted to see what humans are like under pressure. This is it. We laugh. We adapt. We weaponize it." She gave the air a thoughtful sniff. "Next time, add some cinnamon. Maybe it'll feel more festive." Behind the panel, Minister Varen spoke in a low, horrified whisper. "We may have made an error in strategy." Another Perlorian aide was already backing toward the exit. "This is how the war with the Drexens started. Mocking the gas. It always begins with mocking the gas." The vault doors hissed open again, slowly. 2 guards stood there with rifles that didn't look as ceremonial now. Their aim was unsure. Helena walked toward them, calm as a priest. She looked from one to the other, her tone gentle. "You boys all right? Breathing okay? No nausea, dizziness, existential terror?" They flinched. She stepped past them and called to her squad. "Let's go. I think we've finished our tour." As they re-entered the corridor, silence followed them. The guards didn't move. They didn't dare. Behind them, the Empire's analysts watched the humans walk out untouched. "Send a report to Central Command," Crichtol said, voice thin. "Tell them we've encountered a species irregularity." Cord tossed a used sandwich wrapper into a glowing waste bin. Liao, without looking up, said, "They'll try something else soon." "Let 'em," Miggs replied. "I haven't even broken a sweat." Helena smiled to herself. The trap had been clumsy, obvious, insulting. But it wasn't the gas that bothered her. It was the fact that the Empire still thought they were dealing with diplomats. The humans didn't come here to negotiate. They came here to observe. To let the Empire reveal its hand. And now they had. Helena pressed a button on her wrist pad. A light flickered once, twice, then green. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Phase 1 was complete. They kept walking, smiling, bantering, joking. And behind them, the Empire began to sweat. The real war hadn't started yet. But the humans had already won the opening move. The humans were escorted, politely, yet with the unmistakable air of silent urgency, back into the main diplomatic wing. Guards now walked 2 steps closer than before. Their pulse rifles weren't cradled anymore, they were held. Faces that had once shown smug amusement were replaced by tight jaws and darting eyes. Helena Graves noted every shift, every tension. It was all part of the dance. She strolled at the head of the team with the easy grace of someone walking through a park. Cord was cheerfully trailing behind, tapping medical instruments against his thigh like drumsticks. Miggs adjusted his tool belt, whistling something suspiciously close to a funeral march. Liao, as usual, said nothing. His eyes were up, watching corners, doors, reflections. He was a man who'd seen too much to ever stop analyzing. They were led into a circular briefing room with a domed ceiling, and a floating holomap of the galaxy in the center. Ambassador Crichton and Supreme Minister Varen stood waiting with expressions carefully composed into diplomatic masks. "Humans," Crichton began. "We would like to express our regret for the environmental malfunction you just experienced. The Vault's ancient systems occasionally misfire." Helena nodded slowly. "Oh, we understand. Our HVAC at headquarters is the same way. Once vented half a can of pepper spray into the break room. Made coffee time very exciting." Crichton blinked once, twice. "Indeed. A misfire." Helena stepped forward. "So, what was the gas designed to do? Hypothetically." Varen's jaw twitched. "It is irrelevant." "Oh no. I'm fascinated," she said, voice smooth and warm. "Because I'm guessing you've used it on other species. And it worked." Neither alien spoke. That was answer enough. Helena's tone didn't shift, but the temperature in the room felt like it dropped 3 degrees. "Here's the thing about humans. We don't break the same way others do. You hit us with fear, and we turn it into training. You drown us in trauma, and we joke through it. Give us monsters and we name them, write books about them, make horror movies, sell action figures." Miggs chimed in from behind. "My cousin had a panic room with snacks. Called it her anxiety spa." Cord added, "I do yoga to doomsday podcasts. Keeps the heart rate centered." Liao didn't speak. He rarely did. But he moved to stand directly beneath the floating galaxy map and stared upward, hands folded behind his back. Helena let the silence stretch. "You didn't misfire. You tested us. We noticed. We didn't mind." Varen's fingers curled slightly at his side, a twitch of nerves disguised as diplomacy. "What is your point, Sergeant?" Helena stepped closer. "I don't think you understand what kind of species you're dealing with. You see the smiles, the jokes, the coffee cups. You think we're soft, emotional, fragile. And we are, in a lot of ways. But you forgot to study why we survived our own history." Crichton said stiffly. "You are here under diplomatic agreement." "And I'm being very diplomatic," Helena replied brightly. "I haven't even brought up the countermeasures we already activated on your security grid." Both aliens stiffened. Cord took out a packet of gum and offered it to the nearest guard. The guard didn't move. "Mints?" Cord said. "Helps with post-gas nausea. Also covers up the scent of impending failure." Varen took a slow breath. "What exactly are you implying?" Miggs leaned forward. "We mapped your facility the moment we stepped off the shuttle. Recorded your patrol routes. Logged your guard cycles. We've been trained for worst-case scenarios since we were teenagers. You think a locked room and some funny gas is gonna make us flinch?" "We assumed a level of decorum," Crichton muttered. Liao spoke, finally. Quiet. Precise. "You assumed wrong." There was a shift in the room's gravity, though the air stayed still. Helena walked back to the center and clasped her hands behind her back. "We're not here just for peace," she said. "We're here to evaluate you. Your morality. Your stability. Your strategic intelligence. And so far, She tilted her head. You've failed all three. Crichton's voice was tight. You presume a great deal. Helena turned toward him with a calm, unreadable expression. I presume what your actions reveal. You tried to weaponize terror against guests. You staged it under diplomacy. That tells me two things. You're insecure about your control, and you're arrogant enough to think we wouldn't notice. She took a step forward. Let me paint you a picture. Humanity has lived through plagues, wars, apocalypses, recessions, and political chaos. We've fought each other longer than most species have existed. And we're still here. Do you know what that makes us? She smiled. Efficient. Varen muttered something under his breath to an aide, and the walls subtly shifted. Sound dampeners. No doubt orders were going to someone unseen. Helena noticed, but said nothing. Instead, she stepped toward the galaxy map. Here's what's going to happen next. You're going to stop trying to scare us. You're going to stop watching us like we're test subjects. And you're going to start treating this dialogue as real. Or we walk out. And the galaxy watches you lose Earth before you ever had it. Varen's composure cracked. You think anyone would believe you? Cord pulled out a palm-sized drone and tossed it into the air. It blinked blue. We've been live streaming since we entered the facility, he said cheerfully. Say hi to the coalition of free systems. And my Auntie Lynn. Helena folded her arms. You failed your own test. And you forgot we were watching. The silence that followed was brittle. Behind her, Miggs chuckled. You know, if I were them, I'd panic right about now. Varen turned sharply. What are your true intentions here? Helena didn't blink. To see if you were stupid enough to start something. She let the weight of that sit. Crichton's jaw worked silently. Helena turned away from him and toward her team. Let's give our hosts some time to consider the value of sincerity. They left the room in quiet formation, not hurried, not smug. Just efficient. Calculated. Lethal in their control. As they walked the corridor, Cord leaned toward Liao. Think they've figured out we rigged the fire suppression grid yet? No, Liao murmured. Give it 3 minutes. Back inside the chamber, Varen was speaking quickly into a communication crystal, ordering extra layers of security. The door behind him buzzed. Then something odd happened. A panel on the wall hissed. Coolant burst from an overhead vent, triggered by a false signal. Sudden, blinding fog, alarms tripping. Confusion bloomed in the air like wildfire. Guard protocols overrode manual settings. Weapons dropped from standby to hot mode, creating a standoff between two panicked squads. The humans were already halfway down the hall, whistling. You sure it won't cause damage? Cord asked as he adjusted his medical pack. Just embarrassment, Miggs replied. Mostly. Liao added, and surveillance blackout. 15 minutes. Helena smiled to herself. They regrouped in a quieter corridor. Thick steel. Dull lighting. No guards. This is the hallway to their central uplink, Liao said. But it'll be on lockdown now. Not for long, Miggs said, kneeling beside the wall console. Helena waited while he worked. Cord cracked his knuckles and stretched. You think they'll come back with more tricks? He asked. They have to, Helena replied. They can't back down. But they're not ready for us to escalate. Miggs tapped twice and stood up. Open. And masked. They won't know it was us. Nice, Cord said. You're getting faster. It's the terror gas, Miggs said. Really gets the brain humming. The door opened, and they moved inside. The chamber was a minimalist communications hub. Clean panels, layered data screens, and rows of streaming content from across Perlorian territory. Helena walked to the central console. Liao, keep watch. Miggs, scrub anything they tried to record of us. Cord, start dropping our trail in their data logs. Cord tapped away merrily. Man, this is almost nostalgic. Like that time on Kendar Prime when we swapped the planetary anthem with whale mating sounds. Helena's fingers moved quickly over the console. She was accessing the classified logs, Empire protocols, psychological profiles, diplomatic maneuvering. She skimmed through page after page, her eyes narrowing. "They've been studying Earth since before the first contact summit," she said. "Trying to map our cognitive weaknesses. Simulations. Doctrines. They even have fictional media breakdowns. Predator-prey role reversals in Earth cinema." Liao raised a brow. Miggs muttered, "Bet they loved Shark Week." Cord whispered, "Or Die Hard." Helena paused. One file in particular caught her eye. It was flagged under Operation Gentle Cage. She opened it. Inside were documents detailing not just diplomatic aims, but full-spectrum cultural manipulation, long-term plans to integrate humanity into a vassal species role through psychological war, media saturation, economic reliance. They weren't just testing the humans. They were trying to break them slowly. Helena closed the file. Her face had gone still. They were never going to negotiate. They just wanted to see how far they could push before we snapped. Cord stopped typing. Miggs straightened. "Now what?" Liao asked. Helena looked up. Her eyes, usually so warm, held a glint of something ancient and ruthless. "Now?" she said softly. "We let them think we haven't seen it yet." Cord blinked. "We're not blowing this place up?" Helena shook her head. "Not yet. First we send the signal. Quiet. Controlled." She tapped in a sequence. Somewhere in orbit, beyond Perlorian scanners, a dormant satellite activated. It began transmitting a coded burst on a secure Earth military channel. "Phase 2 initiated," it confirmed. Cord let out a low whistle. Miggs grinned. "The Empire has no idea what's coming." Helena turned to the team. "Let's get back to our quarters. Act tired. Talk about feelings. They expect that." Cord laughed. "I'll start complaining about my dreams again." "Make it weird," Helena said. And with that, they exited the chamber as silently as they had entered, vanishing into the shadows of a civilization that had no idea how deep and over its head it truly was. The door slid shut behind them. And the smile Helena wore, small, practiced, and polite, was the most dangerous thing in the building. The Perlorian Empire responded exactly as predicted. Too quickly, too emotionally, and far too late. Within hours of the security breach and the failed gas experiment, internal panic morphed into strategic arrogance. The humans, they reasoned, had clearly violated protocol. And while Earth might be unpredictable, the Empire still believed itself to be the dominant force in the sector. That belief was about to become a liability. Helena Graves stood in her quarters aboard the diplomatic wing, reading the official summons projected in glowing violet script across the wall. Words like violation, breach, and containment were generously used, cloaked in formal language that barely hid the threat beneath. She sipped her now-cold coffee, considered the wording, and chuckled softly. "They really want us to play nice," she said. Liao leaned against the opposite wall, arms crossed. "They're calling us to a disciplinary tribunal. No audience. Closed doors." Cord sat on the bunk, legs swinging like a schoolboy. "And we're supposed to go in unarmed, unescorted, and just talk about our feelings?" Miggs looked up from dismantling a plasma charge into parts small enough to pass through a body scan. "Sounds like a trust exercise. With fascists." Helena set her mug down gently. "It's a trap. Of course it is. But they're counting on us walking into it blindly or refusing outright. Either response feeds their narrative." "They want to make an example of us," Liao said. Helena nodded. "Then we'll give them one. Just not the one they expect." The tribunal chamber was deep within the stronghold, lined with obsidian tiles that absorbed light and made footsteps sound like confessions. The air was thick with ceremonial incense that tried too hard to smell like sanctity. At the center, a crescent-shaped dais loomed above a lower platform where 3 Perlorian high officials waited, flanked by elite guards in iridescent armor. The human team entered precisely on time. Unarmed. Calm. Smiling. Helena walked in like she was early for a brunch meeting. Cord just behind her with a lollipop in his mouth, Liao silent as a statue, and Miggs still chewing something suspiciously crunchy. The central official, High Warden J.R.A. Kett, spoke with the smooth cadence of authority. Sergeant Graves. You stand accused of violating the trust granted to you under diplomatic protection. Unauthorized access to secure systems. Espionage. Subversion. Helena waited politely, then raised a hand like she was in class. Just so we're clear, is this a disciplinary meeting or an audition for the worst hospitality award in galactic history? J.R.A. Kett's eye ridges flattened. Helena smiled as if she hadn't just delivered a veiled insult. We've been extremely cooperative. More than most species would be after what you tried. You speak of the incident in the vault? One of the others asked, tone oily. The gas. Yes. Unless you have another attempted biochemical ambush you'd like to discuss. This tribunal is not here to debate Empire policy. Ah, she said brightly. So you're doing the deny and deflect phase. That means we're close to the part where you threaten us. J.R.A. Kett's frills twitched. You fail to grasp the gravity of your situation. Helena took a step forward. Her voice didn't change, but the warmth in her eyes did. On the contrary. I know exactly how much gravity's in this room. 2.9 Gs more than Earth standard. Likely to make us feel heavy slow. Tactic number 14 from your own intimidation manuals. Very subtle. Behind her, Cord clapped slowly. You should see her tear apart dating profiles. Brutal. The guards shifted. Their hands moved near their weapons. The tribunal was fraying at the edges, confusion and frustration leaking through the polished mask. Helena's tone softened. I understand. You wanted to see how far you could push us before we cracked. That's not strategy. That's fear. And now you've triggered your own trap. Miggs reached into his coat, and 4 guards instantly raised their rifles. He pulled out a datapad and slowly set it on the floor. That's for you, he said. Contains a full backup of your own surveillance feeds, unedited, annotated, and already transmitted to 62 neutral systems. J.R.A. Kett stiffened. You're bluffing. Liao finally spoke. The Empire's network has 12 choke points. We compromised 4. That was enough. Cord leaned against the railing. You should probably update your firewalls. Ours are older and still better. Helena stepped onto the central speaking platform, violating every formal protocol. This whole performance? The ceremony, the threats, the self-importance? We've seen it before. On Earth, we call it middle management in crisis mode. J.R.A. Kett stood slowly. You will be detained. All of you. Helena tilted her head. No, we won't. The lights flickered. A low hum vibrated through the floor, subtle, rhythmic. In orbit above Perler, 8 cloaked vessels powered to life. They were unmarked, silent, and invisible to standard Perlorian detection systems. Each bore the emblem of Earth's Black Ops Division, a sigil rarely seen and never explained. A chess pawn with a serpent coiled around it. The hum grew louder. Within the tribunal, the guards stepped forward. And then paused. A new sound joined the hum. A signal. Repeating. Emergency override recognized. Command protocol GR-13 active. Stand by for visual sync. J.R.A. Kett's translator stuttered. What is this? Proof, Helena said softly, that you were never in control. The holoscreen above the dais lit up, broadcasting footage taken from within the tribunal chamber itself, seconds ago. Then from the control room. Then the vault. Then external defenses. All streamed live. All showing exactly how vulnerable the Empire's core had become. Cord popped the lollipop from his mouth. Hi, Mom. The tribunal panicked. Guards began shouting orders. Doors tried to seal. Systems refused. We didn't come here to play diplomat, Helena said. We came to test your defenses. Your responses. Your ethics. J.R.A. Kett was shaking now, fury seeping into his voice. This is an act of war. No, she said. This is a warning. She turned to leave but paused. One more thing. You remember the gas? That failed little fear cocktail. J.R.A. Kett hissed. We synthesized a sample. Tweaked it. removed the conditioning agents and weaponized the base compound. Turns out, fear is very versatile when you understand it. Cord pulled out a small vial. One drop in a city's water supply would cause 6 days of hallucinations. No casualties. Just chaos. Miggs grinned. That part wasn't in your manuals. Helena faced the tribunal one last time. We're not monsters. But we are very, very good at making monsters uncomfortable. Then she turned and walked away. The rest of the team followed. Behind them, the Empire's highest chamber of law was in disarray. Data feeds exploding. Guards arguing. Leaders unraveling. And above them, for the first time in a century, Perler's planetary defense grid flickered offline. They exited through the lower wing, where the halls were darker, less ceremonial. Liao took point. Miggs walked beside Cord, arguing about whose turn it was to choose the next training simulation. Helena was quiet. Cord eventually noticed. You okay? She nodded. Just thinking about how much worse this could have gone if we weren't so damn polite. He grinned. We could have been rude. We could have been realistic. They reached the extraction bay. One shuttle, nondescript, already warmed and hovering. As they boarded, Helena sent a burst transmission to orbit. Phase 2 complete. Miggs slid into the pilot's seat and grinned. Next stop. Briefing station Theta 12. And coffee. Real coffee. Liao raised a brow. You think they'll try to retaliate? Helena didn't answer immediately. She looked back out the hatch at the massive towers of the Empire's central stronghold. What had once loomed now looked hollow. Fractured. They'll hesitate, she said. They're used to breaking enemies. They don't know what to do with ones who smile while setting the building on fire. Cord buckled in. Do we get shirts made? I already made a patch, Miggs said, producing a small embroidered emblem of a grinning skull with a halo. Helena chuckled softly and turned forward. As the shuttle rose into the atmosphere, Perler fell behind. Just another world now marked for re-evaluation. The team didn't cheer. They didn't toast. They didn't gloat. Because humans didn't win through superiority. They won through understanding exactly how low others would go, and calmly digging deeper. Above them, in the black veil of orbit, Earth's cloaked ships vanished once more, leaving only silence. And one message, quietly echoing through the Perlorian security network. The smiling ones are the most dangerous. The galactic transmission went viral in less than an hour. 59 known species received it simultaneously. A wide-angle, high-resolution view of the Perlorian tribunal room, just as the Empire's most revered officials were rendered powerless. Voices cracking, guards shouting, systems folding in on themselves. The audio captured everything, down to Helena's final words. We're not monsters. But we are very, very good at making monsters uncomfortable. The effect was immediate. Allies of the Perlorian Empire quietly closed their ports. Trade partners suspended shipments with preposterous excuses. Minor planetary governments within Threx-controlled sectors began issuing statements of neutral cooperation with all galactic neighbors. No one dared say the word fear, but it hung in every breath like poison. And in the depths of Perler, panic calcified into silence. In the war chambers of the Perlorian Supreme Council, Supreme Minister Varen sat hunched, staring blankly at a cracked datapad. He hadn't spoken in 6 hours. Not since the data leak hit full scale and the playback ran, again and again, across neutral newsnets. His advisors stood behind him in complete silence. No one dared move. Not since the translation of a particular human phrase was confirmed and cross-referenced by linguists. Middle management in crisis mode. A slur so casual it was almost polite. A knife dipped in sugar. The humans had made fools of them. But not just fools, weaklings. Arrogant, ineffectual, exposed. They came with nothing but smiles, one counselor finally said. And they left with half our central systems compromised. Varen spoke without looking up. They didn't leave with anything. A soft beat passed before he added. They left us with something. Doubt. Elsewhere, Helena stood beneath the flickering lights of a debriefing chamber aboard Earth's orbital station Theta 12. Her team lounged around the table, as if they'd just returned from a training exercise. Except for Liao, who sat as motionless as ever, his thoughts roving in silence. Cord tapped on a medical pad, pretending to record vitals. Miggs had both boots on the table, and was halfway through a stale protein bar. A general addressed them via holopad. Her uniform was impeccable. Her face, tight with the practiced neutral expression of someone accustomed to disasters. Behind her were two intelligence officers, watching Helena like they were hoping to glimpse whatever hell she might unleash next. "You've set off something big," the general said. "The Perlorian Empire has gone radio silent. Reports indicate internal fractures, military leaders refusing direct orders, border sectors claiming autonomy. You didn't just complete the mission. You shattered the illusion of their control." Helena didn't smile. "Not this time. They broke themselves," she said. "We just showed them the mirror." "You'll need to answer questions," the general continued. "The Alliance wants an emergency summit. The Free Systems Council is calling for sanctions. And," she hesitated, "there's talk of giving Earth a permanent seat on the security mandate." Miggs whistled. "Finally." Cord glanced up. "Do we get badges?" "No," the general said. "You get scrutiny." Helena nodded. "Understood. But if they're scared, they should be." The holopad flickered. The general leaned in. "Do you understand what you've started, Graves? We've been trying to show the galaxy we're stable, rational, peaceful." "We are," Helena said. "Until someone tries to choke us in a sealed room." That silenced the chamber. Even the holopad seemed to flicker more solemnly. "They try to subjugate us with gas," Cord said. "That's not diplomacy. That's a war crime with better lighting." Liao's voice broke in, quiet but sharp. "They only respect power. We gave it to them in a language they understood." The general studied them. Her voice softened. "What do you think happens next?" Helena looked around at her team. She saw it clearly. Behind Cord's grin, Liao's stillness, Miggs' bravado. They were tired. But not broken. Hardened in ways no military report could summarize. "We wait," she said. "And we prepare." On the edge of Perlorian territory, a minor outpost commander received an encrypted order marked Eyes Only. It instructed her to activate Protocol Dagger Wing, the contingency for preemptive strike against Earth's orbital infrastructure. She read it once, calmly, then deleted it. She looked around at her crew, some fresh-faced, some veterans. None of them had forgotten the footage. None of them believed they could win. She didn't obey the order. And she wasn't the only one. By the end of the solar week, 17 Outer Rim Perlorian bases had reported system malfunctions, mysterious power disruptions, or claimed local sovereignty, in protest of imperial overreach. The Empire, once a beacon of order, had become a rumor of collapse. Back on Theta 12, the team was dismissed from formal debriefs and returned to temporary quarters. A small dormitory, white walls, utilitarian beds, and a coffee machine that wheezed like it had survived 5 wars of its own. Cord immediately filled a mug with something viscous and dark. Miggs sat on the edge of his bed, opening a toolkit and fiddling with a motion-sensitive grenade he wasn't technically allowed to have on station. Liao positioned his chair by the only window, staring out at the stars. Helena stood alone for a moment, staring at a folder on her tablet. Operation Homecoming. Final Addendum. She hadn't opened it yet. Orders for the next phase. She wasn't sure she wanted to. Cord noticed. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said automatically. He didn't believe her, but didn't push. She finally opened the file. It was brief. Contained no names. Just coordinates, a single statement of objective, and one directive. Maintain posture. Avoid escalation. Project strength. She closed it. "We're going again," she said. Miggs didn't look up. "Another empire?" "No. Another player. Secondary Council. Coalition of non-aligned species." "They're going to test us too, aren't they?" Cord asked. Helena nodded. "They always do." The room went quiet again. The coffee machine sputtered. Liao finally turned from the window. They won't use gas this time. No, Helena said. They'll use charm. Flattery. Offers of influence. The soft trap. Cord tilted his head. You worried? No. Why? Helena smiled, not wide, not bright, just enough. Because they've already seen what happens when we stop smiling. On Perler, in a subterranean chamber that wasn't on any map, a group of surviving strategists huddled around a flickering simulation table. It displayed models of Earth vessels, military projections, psychological evaluations, all flawed. We underestimated them, one hissed. We humanized them, another growled. They are human. No, a third whispered. That's just what they call themselves. But there's nothing human about what they did. Silence. Then, the strategist who hadn't spoken yet leaned forward. They used their own fear as a weapon. Turned weakness into narrative. Mocked our strength into silence. Do you understand how rare that is? Someone murmured, predators. No, he replied. Predators strike from hunger. These ones? They strike from calculation. They stood in silence, all of them aware that for the first time in centuries, the Empire was no longer feared. But something else was. Weeks later, on a backwater trade station orbiting the gas giant Dromelfor, a merchant overheard a conversation between two alien freighter captains. They spoke in hushed tones over steaming mugs of something thick and green. I heard they walked through fear gas like it was spring air, one said. Laughed at it, the other confirmed. One said it reminded her of Detroit. Whatever that means. They're insane. No. Worse. They're comfortable. And now? They've got offers from half the galaxy. Everyone wants an alliance. Or to disappear quietly. The merchant nodded and refilled their mugs. And beneath the table, she clutched a small relic, an embroidered patch with a grinning skull and a halo. She didn't know what it meant. But she knew to keep it close. On Earth, beneath the green hills of Appalachia, a secure council chamber reviewed the fallout of Operation Homecoming. Reports were projected into the air like constellations. Numbers, reactions, patterns. They didn't talk about glory. They talked about restraint. About when to smile. When to withdraw. When to strike. Helena Graves' face appeared on one of the reports. Someone asked if she should be promoted. Not yet, came the answer. She hasn't stopped being useful. Outside, in the quiet trees, cicadas hummed like background static. Earth kept smiling. And the galaxy tried, very quietly, not to look directly into its eyes. The shuttle descended toward Korga Prime, under the cover of false diplomatic tags. The reception committee waited at the landing pad, robes ironed, speeches prepared, smiles tight. They had seen the footage. The humans emerged exactly on time. Helena first. Cord beside her, humming something that sounded like a lullaby. Liao flanking quietly, scanning everything. Miggs last, chewing gum with a grin that could make icebergs sweat. The lead diplomat stepped forward, hand extended. We are honored to host the finest of Earth. Helena took his hand. We're just visitors. No need for honor. Of course. You'll find us very different from the Empire. No tricks here. I'd like to believe that, Helena said, eyes locking with his. But I've learned not to believe in much besides gravity and good boots. The diplomat faltered. She smiled again, that same polite curve that had shaken a government apart. And the galaxy braced itself for another lesson. Not in war. Not in fire. But in the terror of being underestimated by the nicest species in the room.